Hey boyos, daily check-in with John Vee. Not much to go over. As usual, not too much exciting going on in John V's life as usual. Mostly just want to talk about my mental health appointments. I have one coming up next month on the 26th, and one's for counseling and one's to see a psychiatrist. And so there's two appointments, and I only have the date for one of them, the 26th. I have to call to find out the exact times because I forget. Um, but as far as my um, counseling appointments, um, not much has really been established in those appointments. I've had a couple of them, and nothing's been really established or accomplished, really. It's just, a meeting for 45 minutes, and then they send me on my way with promise of another appointment, and I'm thinking it's going to take like a year or longer to actually get the ball rolling and actually get into some kind of program where I'm actually getting help. But yeah, I have a lot of issues from like my childhood and upbringing, and I feel that influenced, for the most part, how I turned out as an adult and have the issues that I have. And I'm hoping seeing a counselor will help that and get the ball rolling on something more where I can find some way of coping with my issues, or some kind of self help, right? I don't expect them to like wave a magic wand and say, there, your problems are gone, abracadabra. I don't expect that, although that would be nice, and part of me does expect that, but for the most part, I don't expect that. But I expect things to be handled with medication, and obviously, personal problems for the most part can't be handled with medication, right? I have a mental illness, schizophrenia, as a lot of you know, and medication pretty much takes care of that, no problem, right? And I think I'm one up on most mentally ill people because I actually take medication for my problems, right? People assist and help each other, right? And I'm told like you should be on medication, so I'm on medication, right? But I know so many people, they have a mental illness, and usually it's schizophrenia. I do know some people who are bipolar, and none of those people take medication. I'm like the only one I know in real life who takes medication for their mental health problems. All right, and I think that's saying something, right? I mean, it's probably more alpha to just deal with the problem on your own and not get help for it, right? But as you know, I advertise myself as a beta male, not as an alpha male, right? And a lot of you think that's an insult to myself, which it's not. A beta male is, there's a lot of positivity about a beta male, like being honest and loyal, reliable, faithful, being on time, right? Always can count on to do the right thing, right? Older people tend to like me, um, as well as young children. Um, Beta males, though, they often do fall short with the opposite sex. But obviously, if you're attractive, it don't matter how much you fuck up. Really, if you're really attractive, you can fuck up big time. You can be a boring ass. You can be, really obnoxious and rude. And if you're really good looking, you will you will get lucky. You just will. And being a beta male, the thing about being a beta male is they're not usually good with the opposite sex because they tend to try to be a nice guy and try to be the woman's friend, right? And that's how the MISC associates a beta male as somebody who has no luck with women, right? So that's why being a beta male catches so much negativity on forums, is because beta males typically don't have as much success as an alpha male, right? Although beta males do make um, good partners for a long term relationship because of their, positive qualities, right? And but obviously everybody wants to be the exciting guy, the guy that's good for a fling, and that's the alpha male, and that ain't me, right? I do have some alpha qualities. I'm primarily a beta male, but secondarily an alpha male. And I'm getting off topic here, but I can't even remember how I got on the topic of beta and alpha, but somebody said a while back on the forum, they were like, your tour is pretty much over if you refer to people as beta or alpha in a video. It is what it is, right? And one thing betas do is they look for approval from others, and that's something I really have to work on, because that's a big shortcoming of mine. Is I look for approval from other people, right? I want other people to approve of me and perceive me favorably, and apparently alpha males do not do that. They don't look for approval, and that's, I feel, one of my main shortcomings as a beta male. I look for approval. um, it's not just me. There's lots of betas, right? There's lots of them, and younger people tend to be betas. They often turn into alphas as they mature, and I might get there one day and become an alpha. um, but there's worse things to be. I could be an omega, and I don't want to be like an omega, because an omega is basically an outcast and a loser. They're the misfit. They have no friends typically, or the friends they have are also omegas, and they establish their own hierarchy within their group, right? But being a beta is not so bad. Being a beta has its good points. Betas, they're often very successful in their career if they have one. They often make a good friend. Like I said, they're honest, reliable, loyal, faithful. They're on time. They're dependable. You can count on them to do the right thing. Um, yeah, they're often diplomatic and agreeable. But they do have shortcomings, like looking for approval and trying to be friends with women rather than trying to sleep with them, right? That is where I'm a little different. I don't typically try to be friends with women. Um, I typically will try to go for things rather quickly, and it's usually the woman that wants the things to escalate a lot faster, and I put the brakes on. And I've had women actually tell me that I didn't pursue. They were like, that seems really strange how the man would, be the one who puts the brakes on. Usually it's the woman who wants to wait to have sex in a relationship, right? And, back in my day, in my supposed prime, I had a lot of options, and, I had the idea in my head, get to know the person first before doing anything like that with them, and it didn't make any difference. They still didn't work out. So, but some people don't have good qualities, and that's why I want to wait before I do something like that, because some people have qualities and traits about them that I just absolutely can't stand. But getting back to counseling, um, I am not putting a lot of hope or faith into the counseling appointments, um, just because I don't expect them to wave a magic wand and fix everything, right? And that's deep down what I want to happen, but I know it can't, because I expect things to be handled with medication and fixed that way. And I don't know, like, if they can offer like some kind of like coping methods or self-help methods, so I can deal with my problems, right? Um, like, for example, in my younger days, I struggled with depression and often wanted to commit suicide. And the suicide that I wanted to commit, it wasn't because of mental illness. It was just because I felt I didn't belong. Life had no meaning. I felt like I didn't belong. Life was meaningless. So I want to commit suicide. And now I don't want to commit suicide. Now that I don't have as much to live for, right? I don't have as many admirable qualities as I did when in my youth. Now I want to live, right? Because I see the futility of wanting to commit suicide, right? I was given one life, and I believe when my life is over, it'll be like a computer that's being shut down, just cease to exist, no memory, nothing. And so I want to use my time wisely and actually enjoy my life, even though I don't do much with my life. I want to enjoy the little life that I have, right? Smoking cigarettes, playing computer games, right? Eating good food, stuff like that. I enjoy that stuff. I enjoy very simple things, right? I don't have expensive tastes. You give me a meal of steak and potatoes, I'm happy, right? I'm very happy. And the problem is, when I am wanting food, I don't reach for steak and potatoes. I reach for potato chips or fast food, which tells me food addiction, right? It tells me it's a food addiction. It's not actual hunger or reaching for good food, it's just a food addiction. But getting back on topic, um, and as far as the psychiatrist appointments, like a lot of it is just the psychiatrist will just ask me how things are going, if the medication is still working. Okay, next appointment, and it's like 5 minutes I'm in, 5 minutes I'm out, and that's typically how a psychiatrist appointment works. Apparently, generally, it's just a follow up where they're just like, any change, everything's going well, good, see you in 3 months, right? And like I have deep rooted issues and problems that need to be addressed. Um, I feel I have self esteem issues. I have somewhat learned to adapt and feel a bit better about myself and my self esteem than when I was younger. When I was younger, I had such little feelings of self worth and low self confidence, low self esteem. I basically seen myself as useless and worthless and, a piece of dirt. That's how I seen myself in my younger days. And I've built a little more confidence, a little more self esteem, a little more self worth, but it's still not to where it should be, I feel. And I don't know what counseling and psychiatry it could do to help me improve those things. I also struggle in social situations, and I think it's probably mostly because of my upbringing and because I spent so much time alone in my life. Um, but that's not that strange because a lot of successful people, they often do spend a lot of time alone, and even unsuccessful people often spend a lot of time alone too. So it's not that unusual. So the social issues that I have, it could be all in my head, right? I could just be imagining them. I think maybe everybody struggles socially, but for me, I feel it doesn't. Socializing does not come naturally, and I know I'm not autistic, right? Um, because I've seen mental health over the years since my teenage days. I've seen a number of different psychiatrists and counselors, and they've never said anything about they think I have autism, um, but they could identify a possibility of a mental illness, and yeah. But I'm rambling too much. I think I've said enough. So peace out, and I'll see you online.